Hi friends, it's Jasmine, your Vancouver, Washington Realtor extraordinaire. And if you're planning to buy a home in Vancouver or anywhere in Clark County, I'd love to help guide you through it. You can call me, text me, email me, or fill out my buyer questionnaire linked down below. It only takes a minute, and once I know your goals and timeline, I can offer guidance that actually fits you, not just a one-size-fits-all market update. Now, something I've been hearing from a lot of buyers lately, especially folks relocating from places like Arizona, Florida, and Texas, is this. The market feels uncertain, interest rates are high, is now even a good time to buy? And honestly, those are smart questions to ask, because the truth is, the economy has changed, and the housing market has shifted along with it, not just nationally, but right here in Vancouver, Washington too. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are making decisions based on fear, misinformation, or national headlines that don't actually reflect what's happening here locally. So in this video, I'm breaking it all down. What's really going on with the economy? How's that showing up in our local housing market? And what smart buyers are doing right now to move forward, even in a high rate environment. Whether you're thinking about relocating or just trying to figure out if 2025 is the right time to buy, this will help you make sense of what's actually happening here, so you can make your next move with clarity, confidence, and strategy. And if you're feeling stuck or unsure, don't stress. I help buyers navigate this process every week, and I'd love to help you too. All of my contact info is down below. Let's get into it. If you've been watching the news, especially over the past year, you've probably seen some pretty intense headlines. Things like the housing market is cooling, affordability crisis, interest rates hit their highest levels in decades, or buyers are backing out. And I get it. It's a lot to take in. It makes people feel anxious, unsure, or even frozen when it comes to moving forward with a home purchase. But here's what those headlines don't tell you. They're almost never talking about your specific city, your price point, or the type of home you're actually looking for. Most of these stories are zoomed way out. They focus on national averages or high-velocity metro areas like San Francisco or Austin, not Clark County or Vancouver, Washington. And they often overlook the nuance of what's actually driving the market shifts. Things like interest rates, buyer fatigue, or migration trends that don't affect every market the same way. What I'm seeing here in Vancouver is very different from what a lot of people are assuming. Yes, interest rates are higher than they were in 2021. Yes, some buyers have stepped back, but that's also created space. Homes are sitting a little longer, sellers are more open to negotiation. In certain price points, especially above $600,000, price reductions are becoming more common. Buyers who are prepared, even in this higher rate environment, are often walking away with closing cost credits, rate buydowns, and flexible terms that would have been nearly impossible during the frenzy. So while the national headlines make it sound like everything's frozen or falling apart, what's really happening in Vancouver is rebalancing. This market isn't crashing, it's adjusting. And for buyers who are strategic and informed, that shift is opening up opportunities that didn't exist even 18 months ago. Now let's zoom in and talk about what's actually happening here in Vancouver, Washington, not nationally, not hypothetically, but based on real sales data from this year. From January through August 25th, over 1,600 homes sold in Vancouver. That includes everything from entry-level condos to luxury homes across nearly every zip code in Clark County. So this isn't just a snapshot, it's a solid pulse check on how our market is behaving in real time. What we're seeing is a market that's still active and diverse, but slower and more negotiable than it was during the peak frenzy of 2021 and 2022. Median home prices across the Vancouver area are holding relatively steady, ranging from the mid-300s in East Vancouver to over $675,000 in more upscale areas like Philida, Ridgefield, and Camas. The median across the city sits around the mid to high 400s, depending on which neighborhood you're looking at. This tells me that prices aren't crashing, they're just stabilizing. And in a few high-end pockets, values are still rising, with median sales hitting over $675,000. Now, let's talk about inventory. In January, we had about 2.6 months of inventory on the market, which still leans towards a seller's market. But by spring and early summer, we were looking at closer to 6 or 7 months of inventory. That shift is huge, especially for buyers. It means more choices. It means homes are sitting longer. It means sellers have to work a little harder to win your offer, and that creates opportunity. Average days on market here have also increased. We're seeing homes linger anywhere from 30 to 60 days, depending on condition, pricing, and location. And sellers are starting to respond to that. We're seeing more price reductions, more concessions, and more openness to covering buyer closing costs or offering rate buydowns. In a lot of cases, you can now negotiate things that would have been off the table a year or two ago, especially if you're a cash buyer or you're coming in strong with financing and a clean offer. So if you're relocating from somewhere like Arizona, Florida, or Texas, and expecting to compete with 20 other offers and waive every contingency, that's not the market we're in right now. But that doesn't mean it's a bad time to buy. It just means you need to be strategic. Because while we do have more homes sitting on the market, the well-priced, move-in ready homes in desirable school zones or updated neighborhoods, those still go quickly and often with multiple offers. It's all about knowing how to read the market, and that's where having local guidance makes a huge difference. So, what does all of this actually mean if you're thinking about buying a home in 2025? First, let's talk about interest rates. Because yes, they're higher than they were in 2020 or 2021, and no, that doesn't feel great when you plug those numbers into a mortgage calculator. But here's what most people forget. When a lender approves you for a home loan, they're not just approving you for the price of the home, they're approving you for a monthly payment. And that payment includes 4 parts: principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, also known as PITI. So if you're stretching your budget to the max, it's not just the price that matters, it's the full monthly picture. And right now, higher rates do impact that equation, but there are ways to work with it and in some cases, negotiate around it. Because the shift we've seen in Vancouver this year, with more homes sitting longer, sellers getting more flexible, and competition softening in certain price points, means that buyers are gaining leverage. You might not be able to control the rate, but you can ask for closing cost credits, a seller paid rate buydown, or even a price reduction in some cases. These aren't hypothetical strategies. I've helped buyers negotiate them this year, and I'm still doing it right now. And let's not forget, you can always refinance later if and when rates do drop. That's why you've heard the phrase, marry the house, date the rate. I know it sounds overused, but the logic is sound, especially if you're planning to stay in the home for a few years and you're in a strong equity position. But even more than that, what I want you to take away from all of this is that you're not powerless in this market. You just need a plan. You need clarity on what you can afford, where you're willing to compromise, and what kind of lifestyle you're really aiming for here in the Pacific Northwest. Once you know that, we can find homes that make sense for you, not just emotionally, but financially. There's no perfect time to buy a house. There's only the right time for you and the right strategy to support it. Now, I want to speak to something that matters just as much as price and payment, and that's mindset. Because in this kind of market, the buyers who succeed aren't just the ones with the bigger budgets. They're the ones who are prepared, informed, and clear about what they want. They understand the process, they know their numbers, they've thought through their needs and goals. And maybe most importantly, they've tuned out the noise. Because there's a lot of it right now. From social media to mainstream news to your well-meaning friends and family who are convinced you should wait. Everyone has an opinion, but most of those opinions aren't rooted in your actual market or your personal situation. And that's where buyers can get overwhelmed and discouraged. Not because the market is impossible, but because they're listening to the wrong advice. Here in Vancouver, what I've seen is that the buyers who thrive are the ones who stop asking, is this a good time to buy? And instead start asking, what do I need in order to buy well? That shift makes all the difference. It puts the focus back on what you can control, your budget, your readiness, your support team, your strategy. That doesn't mean you have to rush. It doesn't mean this is the right time for everyone. But it does mean you don't need to wait for a perfect market in order to make a smart move. You just need a plan and people in your corner who understand what matters to you. And I want to be really clear here. This is not a market that only works for a certain kind of buyer. This is not about being a cash buyer or relocating from a high-cost city or having perfect credit. This market favors preparedness. It favors buyers who are financially informed, emotionally grounded, and ready to act with intention when the right opportunity comes along. I don't believe in one-size-fits-all advice. I don't believe in pressure. And I don't believe in fear-based messaging. Whether you're buying a VA loan, relocating for work, moving closer to family, or looking for more space, you deserve real guidance that fits your unique situation. No agenda, no sales pitch, just honesty and strategy. So if you've been watching from the sidelines, waiting for things to settle, just know this. The market may not be perfect, but your approach can be. And that's where I come in. Before we wrap up, I want to quickly walk you through a few common mistakes I see buyers make in this type of market, especially those who are relocating or just starting their home search after months of watching from the sidelines. These aren't meant to scare you, but they're worth being aware of because avoiding just one of these can make your experience a lot less stressful. The first big one is getting emotionally attached to a home before you're financially ready. This happens all the time. Buyers see a listing they love, they picture themselves in it, and then they realize they haven't been pre-approved or haven't run the numbers yet. In this market, things can still move quickly, especially under $500,000. So getting emotionally committed before you're financially prepared can set you up for disappointment. The second mistake is assuming that higher interest rates automatically means it's a bad time to buy. Yes, rates are higher, but they're not everything. What matters is your monthly payment, your long-term goals, and your negotiating power. And right now, buyers have way more leverage than they did during the pandemic years. Another big one is only focusing on price and not looking at the full monthly cost. That includes your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, and possibly your HOA dues. Especially if you're comparing Vancouver to a place like Texas or Arizona, you'll want to account for property tax differences and how that affects your approval. A fourth mistake is assuming you can't negotiate. Just because we're not in a full-blown buyer's market doesn't mean you're powerless. Depending on the property, the seller's motivation, and how long it's been on market, you may be able to negotiate closing costs, a rate buy-down, inspection repairs, even a price adjustment, but only if you know how to ask. And finally, one of the most common mistakes I see is waiting for the market to crash without preparing in the meantime. If prices did come down, you'd still need to be financially ready, have your documents in place, and know what kind of home fits your needs. So don't wait passively. Use this time to position yourself so when something great hits the market, you're ready to go. All right, friends, we've covered a lot in this video. From what the national headlines are getting wrong about the housing market, to what's actually happening here in Vancouver, to the biggest buyer mistakes I see right now and how to avoid them. And if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this. You don't need a perfect market to make a smart move. You just need a strategy that fits your goals, your timing, and your financial reality. Because the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Some buyers are willing to pay a little more in interest to get the home and location they want right now, especially if they plan to refinance later. Others want to play the long game, take their time, and focus on negotiating the best possible terms. Both are valid, both can work beautifully. It just depends on what matters most to you and how we position your offer. That's where I come in. If you're planning to buy a home in Clark County, whether you're relocating from Arizona, Florida, Texas, California, or Hawaii, or just moving across town, I'd love to help you figure out what makes the most sense for you. I'll walk you through current inventory, real-time pricing trends, local tax impacts, and lender-approved monthly costs so you can make decisions with clarity and confidence. Here's what you should do next. Call me, text me, or send me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I work with buyers every week who are relocating, downsizing, upsizing, or just trying to make sense of this shifting market. No pressure, no sales pitch, just real support to help you make smart moves. If you're still early in the process, I've linked my buyer questionnaire down below. It only takes a minute, and once I know your timeline, your goals, and your price range, I can send you personalized insights, not generic advice. And if you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing it with someone you know who's thinking about moving to Clark County. There's a lot of noise out there about real estate. My goal is to cut through that with honest, practical info that actually helps. Did anything surprise you about what's happening here in Vancouver right now? The inventory, the prices, the negotiating opportunities? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences if you're already house hunting. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!